Welcome back to our Knights of the Old Republic loreplay series. Last week we rescued Zalbar from slavers, which means we can now use him in mission to sneak into a Swoop gang's base so we can steal a prototype Swoop engine, so we can enter a Swoop race, so we can finally save Bastila. That is quite the to-do list. So while we do it all, it seems appropriate to talk about Swoop gangs and Swoop racing throughout the galaxy. But first, let's feed a grenade to this Rancor. I'll be honest, I forgot what to do here for a second, and I just tried to fight the thing. It did not go well. Back to the matter at hand, Swoop gangs were criminal organizations that were basically like the motorcycle gangs of Star Wars. Specifically on Taris, there were two major gangs, the Black Vulcars and the Hidden Becks. The Becks were abnormal because they were like a friendly motorcycle gang. They worked against their Sith oppressors and respected the lives of their fellow Taresians. The Vulcars were only out for themselves, and they were constantly causing trouble for everyone in the lower city. We're sneaking into their base to steal that engine, which they originally stole from the Becks. Of course, there were a number of other gangs throughout galactic history, and I'll run through all of them right now. Another Taresian gang was called the Blood Tax. Taris just can't catch a break, huh? The Tax were made up of non-humans that were sick of being persecuted by their human neighbors. About 4,000 years after the Becks and the Vulcars were two gangs known as the Knights and the Skulls. They were very similar to the gangs in this game. The Knights opposed the Galactic Empire and had a code of honor, as they were named after the Jedi Knights. The Skulls were much more destructive, and they opposed pretty much everyone, including the Empire, the Rebels, just anyone that wasn't them. Jabba the Hutt had a Swoop gang on Tatooine that was led by Big Giz, but it had no name, or at least not one that was ever mentioned. They could be seen in Shadows of the Empire. The Farini team was a Swoop gang that included a teenage Dengar until he was injured in a race by Han Solo. When he was kicked off the team, he hired an assassin to kill them all. The Black Serifs could be found on Corellia. Their main form of criminal activity was to set up fake Swoop races in order to rob any novice racers dumb enough to participate. That seems kinda lame, guys. You're not a biker gang, you're just scam artists. The Tech Rats was a Syrian Swoop gang. There isn't much more to say about them except I think that with an extremely tall head, you'd have to make for a very cautious Swoop gang. Watch out for low bridges, guys. The Grave Tuscans was a gang made up of Tusken Raiders, which is a little too goofy if you ask me, but they can be seen in Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. There's not too much information on the Crate Draggers except that they operated on Tatooine, but they're the only ones with a logo, a Crate Dragon on Tatooine's twin suns. The Blood Scars operated out of Gepperin, and they had a run-in with Mara Jade in the book Allegiance. The Cloud Riders appeared in the classic Star Wars comics, and I suspect they were called a Swoop gang before it was ever decided what a Swoop really was. Those vehicles do not look cool or intimidating at all. They raided farming villages until Han Solo and Chewbacca killed enough of them that the gang disbanded. And there were a number that were named at some point but don't really have much actual information on them, and those include the Afterburners, the Bargleg Gang, the Blood Razors, the Blood Velkers, the Blood Sniffers, the Burning Tukata, Cooper's Swoopers, which is the most adorable name for a gang ever, the Dark Star Hellions, the Farns, the Havocs, the Hawkbat Gang, the Hurt Vectors, the Laser Flits, the Marauders, the Nashta Gang, the Nebula Masters, the Nova Demons, the Rabid Minox, which I don't think makes much sense as a name. I mean, Minox aren't mammals, and I'm pretty sure only mammals can get rabies. Maybe that's not true in the Star Wars universe, but moving on. There were the Raging Banthas, the Shadow Angels of Dathomir, which, okay, that's probably the best name of the whole bunch, the Skyhawks, the Sligo Pirate Gang, the Spiders, the Talons, the Gutter Wipes, gross, the Valerian Swoopers, and the Vipers. The only canon Swoop gang so far is the Grey Gundarks. They appear in the short story The Crimson Corsair and the Lost Treasure of Count Dooku. Alright, after all that, we've fought our way through the Black Vulcar base and effectively murdered like 90% of them. So now we have the prototype engine, and all we have to do is win a Swoop race, because the grand prize is Bastila Shan. I don't think the race itself is a very accurate portrayal of an actual Swoop race, and the Swoop doesn't even look like a Swoop. I'm sure that all came down to the restrictions of making the game, and technically there could be an argument that a Swoop is different than a Swoop bike, but come on, doesn't this race look so much cooler than simply going fast in a straight line? I guess we can chalk up the simplicity of this track and the difference of the vehicle to the fact that archaeologists theorized that swoop racing originated on Terrace. So this could be considered one of the first swoop races we're in now. And it's not so much a race as it is a time trial. Swoops could travel at over 600 kilometers an hour. Many racing swoops had their brakes removed to make them even faster, and they installed deflector shields to protect them from impact. But when you're going 600 kilometers an hour with no seatbelt, a deflector shield isn't going to do much to save the driver. Much like Anakin Skywalker and his pod racing, we seem to have a natural talent for swoop racing, and we win Bastila. We have to do a little fighting to officially win her freedom, and then she immediately starts to sass us. After everything we've been through, maybe you'd like it back in your cell, Your Highness. That's going to bring today's video to a close. Next week we'll have to steal some launch codes so we can start making our way off Terrace and on to the next planet. But until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.